welcome to the Nerd Rage Podcast. We're doing an episode of Underwear on the Outside today, where we just make fun of pop culture. And today's topic is going to be Star Wars, the past, the original trilogy, the prequels, and what we think about the new trilogy that's intended to come out in the next few years here. So today, I am Ryan, and with me is
Ryan.
So I was curious, like, what is your thoughts on the prequel trilogy first and foremost? I know there's a lot of skewed opinions on it, so what's yours?
I'm a big fan of Episode 1. I'm not going to win over any fans here, but I like Jar Jar Binks, whatever.
Okay.
I think Darth Maul, I don't know, I like Darth Vader, but I think Darth Maul is probably my favorite.
Cooler than Vader?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I like Vader for what he is, but I always thought that, like, Grievous gets a lot of flack, but I always thought that Grievous was kind of like the same character too. Like, I mean, in a lot of ways got that nasally breathing, and he was like this hunched over general type. But I really do like the prequels. I think that the acting could have been better, and some of the writing was a little But that being said, 2 is my least favorite because I felt like it was just filler for the next episode. But it's also one of my reasons that I don't like Empire Strikes Back, and I'm probably gonna get every like fanboy hating me for saying it, but I just don't totally get the appeal of why Empire is like the best movie of all time. They're good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's certainly better than Episode 2, but like what are your thoughts on like what they could do with like the prequel trilogy to make them better?
Find someone different to play Anakin, just for starters.
Yeah, I think that's a consensus with a lot of people. Okay.
I feel like at least 2 and 3 were just all special effects, and let's see what we can do with this new technology, and that kind of got away from like what Star Wars was supposed to be.
Yeah, the practical effects really seem to be missing. Like that was one of the cool things. I actually just got done watching the original Jurassic Park after watching Jurassic World. And by the way, guys, if you haven't seen Jurassic World, fantastic movie. But I will give more credit to the original Jurassic Park because they did such a great job with practical effects. I forgot about scenes where, they go up to rub like this Triceratops that had been sick or injured or something like that. And, just seeing it and touching it and watching it breathe right there in front of you like this physical creature really adds something to the movie that the more I watch the Star Wars movies, especially the prequels, it makes me realize that those touches are really important. But aside from like special effects, is there any other ones that you would just like change if you could?
In the prequel trilogy?
Yeah.
I mean, my whole thing was like, it was cool there hadn't been a Star Wars movie in 20 years almost?
Yeah, so
maybe?
the hype was huge for it.
But at the same time, it was like, we already know this story. Like,
True.
Give us something we don't already know.
Right. I actually heard that there like a bunch of theories and tell me what you would think if you were to hear this. Okay, so one theory that I heard, and I'm not even kidding about this, was like they would totally like scrap all the concepts of 1, 2, 3 and say that the series, at least the first episode, should focus on like Anakin's mother, and like he should actually have a father instead of like the whole Immaculate Conception thing and a bunch of these theories about how he ties into Jesus, but then at the end gets corrupted. I've heard so many different.
Because Padme is an angel, right?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But like the mother Shimi or whatever she was, I forgot what she was called. But like Anakin's mother actually has a husband in this, but like the husband's like one of those dads that goes off to get a cigarette and almost never comes back. Like he's just barely in the picture. So he's already kind of more grown than he was in Episode 1, and then he ends up like watching his mother die in front of him, and he consistently has that rage, but no one knows that he has the whole Jedi powers thing until they see him like get completely enraged, and then he like force chokes someone. But the only problem I have with that is I feel like that's the kind of thing that's been done in other mediums before. Like I can't remember the movies that it reminds me of, but oh, this almost like Dragon Ball Z is like the kid sees something happen, all of a sudden, what? He's got powers now.
Right.
So, like, that was the thing. And then episode 2, there was like no talk about love. It was just like war just broke out. Because, I mean, the Clone Wars have to be discussed at some point because
right.
Obi-Wan mentions it in, I think it was in A New Hope, right? Because, it had to have been.
Yeah.
Because he said back in the days of the Clone Wars, or something like that.
Did he call it the Clone Wars? Or was
it was called the Clone Wars, so that's why they had to keep that name and kind of go with that concept. But then again, I think George Lucas kind of had some of this already planned out in his head, even though he probably did tweak it over the years.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially after all the Ewok specials and all this crap that came over the years.
if they never did the special editions of 4, 5, and 6, to be
Yeah,
honest.
and I've heard that thing over and over again. Like, they recently said that they can definitively prove that it was not George's intention originally to have Greedo shoot first. Or Han shoot first. I think that was the thing. Or wait, no, because Han shot first, and that's why... Yeah, that's why it was cool, was because, he's such a badass. He'll fire at anyone because he can just, like... He can tell, and he's so cool, like, that guy was going to shoot him anyways. But yeah, in the special edition, they have Greedo shoot, and that's... That gets a lot of hate because people are like, oh, but that's because, he sucks then because he has to retaliate to do something cool like that. And it diminishes it, I guess. And then I don't think that adding in I don't know, I think the one thing I saw that just took me out of the movie of the special editions was there's like this... Are they the Banthas? I think those, like, walking, almost slug-like creatures that just kind of cross the scene.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, I don't know. What would you take out of 4, 5, and 6?
From originally or from the special edition? Because originally...
From the special edition, yeah. Like, are there
everything.
Anything special about it you would just be
Two things that come to mind right away are when they first get to... Tatooine, or when they first get to Mos Eisley and they're walking her friend, the speeder or whatever, and there's just these random creatures like that weren't there before.
Yeah,
they're obviously out of place because they're obviously placed there by a computer. It doesn't even look right in the world.
Yeah.
And the second thing that really bugs me is in Return of the Jedi when they're in the Sarlacc pit and there's the huge giant like piranha plant coming out of the hole. Like, it was much better when it was just like that empty hole with a couple of tentacles and you had no idea what was inside.
See, that's the thing. People talk about that, and I have yet to go back and see that part. You said it's in Empire?
Return of the Jedi.
Or Return. Okay. So I have to go back and specifically see that one. I've not seen that one, and for what the criticism is, I can't remember exactly, but I think I remember like the whole mouth with all that coming out.
It's like a piranha plant from Super Mario Brothers coming out of the pipe. Like, what is this even doing here?
That's perfect. Oh, okay. So I mean, I would like that. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'd have to see it, but like, definitely with all the computer generated stuff, it just seems very tacked on. Like, if you were to go and, I don't know, pull like a Matrix effect in The Godfather or something, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, you wouldn't want to add that. Like, what would be the point? Like, it can stand on its own. Like, if you can really discreetly add in something that you genuinely feel adds to it, maybe you go with that. But like, I can't say on the whole piranha plant thing because I can't remember that. But it makes me want to watch it that much more
I
though.
didn't remember it.
But like, I heard one thing that they changed was like actually two that I can think of is one where they added the lightsaber. Like, I think Luke's changed from being, I think, green to blue or something like that. Like, and I heard a lot of people say because like his lightsaber is different from one version to another. I think it's like from blue to green.
Well, it's blue in A New Hope and Empire, and it's green in Jedi, but it's a different lightsaber.
Oh, okay.
Because when he gets his hand cut off, the lightsaber goes down the thing.
I honestly heard that as a criticism. They were like, oh, it should be like, there was something about how it changed, and there was a reason behind it, but like, the fans didn't like it because they thought that it being what it was in the original versions was so much better. And I just was like...
Because it was Anakin's lightsaber, wasn't it?
Was it? Oh, that just blew my mind. I had no idea that was Anakin's lightsaber.
The original one, yeah. Because he said in A New Hope, he says, "Is your father's sword."
Wow.
Obi-Wan tells him that.
That's right, he did. Oh, man, I gotta watch the original ones again because I own, believe it or not, I own the Blu-ray prequel trilogy, but I do not own the Blu-ray original series. I will get them, I swear. But right now, you know, I got what I got, you know. But not only that criticism, but there was also the whole no from when Vader's being thrown over, or when Vader throws Sidious over the edge at the end of Jedi.
Does he say that?
Yeah, and they added it in where he's taking him. And I think because he was trying to hit Luke with the Force lightning, and then he tries to take him, and then he picks him up, and I think it was electrocuting Vader, and he's about to throw him over, and he's like, no, because basically it was a voice of sacrifice, you know, and it was apparently silent before.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems, why would they add that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I guess I can understand the choice of it, but, it didn't need to be there.
Right.
It's just added dialogue, and it's fine if you like that. And weirdly enough, I know that there are some people who will actually defend the special editions to the death. They think they're necessary. They're probably not very great in number, these people, but there are some people who really like it. So what I've always said is, why doesn't Disney necessarily get their act together, work with Lucas and just figure out a way that they can get the original versions and release them too? Because if you could release them and also have the special editions out there, it would just be like any other movie, where you get an unrated edition or whatever. If the special edition appeals to you, you can go ahead and buy that. But if you're one of these clamoring fans that have been dying to get the original series for what they were, now you can get it. Disney makes twice as much money because people are buying A and B. And you just make out in the end,
Well, when they first released it on DVD, it was the special edition, but then they did the second release where they had both discs in the same
Yeah,
set.
Was that the DVD?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I had heard.
But I don't see why they couldn't put both versions on the Blu-ray.
Exactly, yeah. Well, one thing I had heard, and I don't know if this is the point-blank reasoning as to why, but I had heard that some of those, the negatives that they use to touch up the films when they go to Blu-ray, some of the negatives were, falling apart or damaged or something like that, so they couldn't properly restore them. But I feel like that's almost a cop-out, because I've seen some really old movies. I'm talking I think it's Nosferatu is even on Blu-ray in these days.
Yeah, and they just released, A Trip to the Moon from, 1902. I saw
really?
it on Netflix the other day,
That's
black and white
Netflix?
and the color version.
That's awesome. Oh, is that the one where it looks like there's a bullet in a cartoon looking eye
or something? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. So that was from 1902.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how would you rank the first 6 that we currently have in your personal order?
Well, Empire is my favorite. And then it would be a toss-up between Episode 1 and Episode 6.
Okay.
Just because, I don't know, there's so much I like about Episode 1.
How do you feel about, Episode 3, for example?
3 is probably my least favorite of them all.
3's your least? Oh, man. Okay. No, keep going.
There was nothing to... I don't know. I was so excited to see that movie. I dressed up like Darth Vader to go see it at the theater. And it was awesome at the time, but looking back, it's there wasn't anything really special about it. They fought, did they ever really explain why Anakin went evil?
Yeah, and that's what makes me kind of a fan of the prequel trilogy, is because, I get what George Lucas's vision was with that. A lot of it was really targeted at toys, unfortunately, which would explain things like Jar Jar and why some characters would have frickin' 4 lightsabers on them at a time. As cool as that is, some of it just deviates from practicality, but at the same time, you gotta look at it this is a fictional world where swords are lasers and, all that.
Right.
So the whole concept is we get Anakin as a boy. He has to struggle with basically emotions, and his emotional struggle is what gets him to the point where he can be so manipulated that like a puppet master can actually pull his strings and make him do whatever he wants, because by the time the third movie's happened, he feels like he's lost the love of his life, although they could have made that love a bit more convincing without dragging it on forever, you know, running through the fields and all that stuff. But the whole point is that he goes through this ridiculous emotional struggle, and that emotions are one of the things that the Jedi try and steer clear from, because that is one of the things that leads to the dark side, just like Yoda says. So, to the point where he feels he's lost the love of his life, he's lost his mother, he doesn't feel like he can trust the people that have been close to him this whole time, because he thought that he could trust the Jedi Order, and Sidious / Palpatine gives him this impression that they can't be trusted. He gives them a lot of loopholes or gray areas that he sees within them that makes him doubt what he was trusting all along. So pretty much everything he believed at one point has now been like thrown under the bus, and the only constant he's left with by the end of the third movie is that Sidious / Palpatine is the only real constant in his life. So much so that he just follows him to the end, because he feels defeated, he feels he can't trust anyone, and he basically ends up becoming a servant to the Dark Lord. And that was always my take from it. Now, granted, there's a lot of fillers in there, wars with the Gungans, trade routes, the whole 9 yards, that probably didn't need to be in there, and they probably further could have done some justice to like either his emotional state. They could have got a better actor. They could have done a lot of things differently, frankly. They didn't even need to make the Clone Wars actual clones if they didn't want to, because I hear a lot of criticisms about how they're basically all a bunch of Jango Fett's, but they don't really fight like Jango Fett. And I've also heard that, what was the other thing? That how did all the Jedi get taken down by Jango Fett's? Like, but that one I always say it's like they caught them off guard. They really trusted them, and they were winning all these wars, and then boom, they're shot in the back. And it doesn't take much to bring them down, but I mean, at the same time, you know, they're outnumbered. I mean, and they clearly show it in the movie. So I think some of the criticism gets a little heavy-handed. If you accept it for kind of what I just laid out there, that the focus on is not necessarily on that he, you know, had, I don't even know how to put it, just all these little things that just led to him becoming like this servant, you know, that ended up going to the dark side, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you could spend all day nitpicking on them. You could nitpick on like Spider-Man movies. You could go to town on anything all day long. Like, I always wondered why they did the Star Wars Christmas specials. Like who is that targeting to?
I've never seen that. I've heard all these stories about it, but I don't think I've ever
sat
down
YouTube.
and watched
It is so bad. It's okay. I literally had to fast forward through it because my mind was about to go numb. Like it's like catering to Star Wars fans that are under 8 years old and really like Wookiees and only understand things that would be found in like a Dr. Seuss book, because it's basically like, hey, it's our Wookiee friends, and they're all just like sitting in a treehouse, and there's like a tiny Wookiee kid, a Wookiee mom and dad. I think it's actually Chewbacca, his wife and kid, because apparently he has those. And then it's like, if you ever see one of those like variety hour specials where they're all like mom and pop and they're in the kitchen and they're just having like a good family time, it's like that. And then they turn to the TV, and then there's like Han Solo, like with a message or something like that for his Wookiee friend, and then they'll switch to another station, and then here's Luke, and he's over here talking about blah blah blah, and he's over in Dagobah in the swamp. Like, oh, I really want to get out of this tricky mess that I'm in. But it's all like really campy and lighthearted, and it's really weird. And then at the end, they just kind of do like this Christmas song / sign off that looks very much like, what was it? What was the one where they get the medals? Is that the end of the A New Hope?
4?
Yeah, it's very much like that. They're just not getting medals, but they're arranged like in the exact same way. But the only difference is that now they're in like, it's on like a Wookiee-ish stage, and they're kind of like holding each other, singing this song about, I think it was like togetherness, and the Wookiees are all kind of surrounding them too, and just like singing along with them. It's really, really bad.
It's
really
all
weird.
the like original actors and stuff.
Yeah, like Mark Hamill's in it. Did you know about his accident?
No.
So apparently, when Hamill was cast, and you can probably see this as the movies go on, Hamill was supposed to kind of be like the pretty boy, and Han Solo was essentially supposed to be like the badass from the other side of the galaxy who doesn't care, like rebel without a cause. And then Leia was also kind of written to be a strong character. But Luke, I think it was after Episode 4, like right as they were shooting Empire, or somewhere in between, he gets in this car accident and like messes up his face. So when they do this Christmas episode thing, this whole special, his face is just covered in pancake makeup. I mean, it's it's really orangey. It looks really bad. I don't know what his face looked like. I haven't done the research to see like how his face got changed, but you can tell that there's definitely something un-Lukish about him from one movie to another.
I guess I just never noticed it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear a lot of people joke, they're like, that's why he got into voice acting, because it's, you know, not the prettiest face in Hollywood anymore, like that sort of thing. But, I mean, I don't really care about how someone looks. I mean, unless you go from being Darth Maul to, I don't know, someone from the Care Bears, I'm not really worried about what you really look like in the face, so to speak. But I just thought it was really funny because someone told me about it, then I watched it, and I was like, crap, that is a lot of makeup, and that was clear as day.
I gotta go watch that now.
It's super orangey, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that I feel like when George is just allowed to be George, and he's not thinking about like how to sell this to like every market available, he shines. Like he did that movie Red Tails. Like he wasn't trying to make that for, you know, third graders who heard from their big brother that, oh, this movie's cool. He made it because that was like a passion project. And that movie, which for anyone of our listeners who don't know, that's a movie about I think the Tuskegee Airmen of World War II, just this all African-American fighter pilot group, and they really shined during the war, and they really stood out, and they were very accomplished for what they did. And I love that movie, not just because it broke race and preconceived notions about who was really victors in that war, but just because it was a solid movie. And that shows that George Lucas, when he wants to commit to something and do it without thinking about every person that he's not going to piss off in the process, he can actually make a solid movie. But it just sucks that the prequels get turned into basically one big toy advertisement.
Do you think he really cared about pissing anyone off? Like, I feel like he just wanted to do things his way anyway.
Yeah, you know, I've heard that criticism too. Like, I don't know really what his intention was for the prequels. Like, I have a feeling like he had like a beginning, middle, of an end. But I honestly feel like he's kind of like, at this point now, like the guy I despise the most out of Marvel. I can't necessarily pronounce it correctly, but I call him Avi Arad. The guy who has been kind of like producer on pretty much the worst Marvel films you've ever seen. So like your Ghost Rider, Spider-Man 3... he's the guy who's notorious for trying to shoehorn in Venom because he thought that's what the kids want. You can't tell, but I'm actually doing air quotes here. But yeah, basically trying to like force in all these things because he knows, and there's a lot of people in Hollywood who know that at the end of the day, toys, they're the things that really sell and make the most money. That's what allows sequels to be made. If it can hit a certain amount of money, if it can sell itself on toys, then they've made bank, and that's what's going to keep it going further. Like, Green Lantern was close. It almost had a sequel, but those toys can sell for crap. And as much as I love Green Lantern, like, I found a whole bunch at Walmart for like basically $1 each because they were just trying to liquidate the crap out of them. Works for me, sucks for others, but yeah, it's what happens. And I think that George Lucas fell into that trap of like, oh crap, I gotta sell the crap out of some toys, so let's make a whole pod racer thing. And what do you think about the pod racers?
That's probably my favorite part of episode 1.
You like the pod racers? Okay.
That was like the only part with where the new special effects like could really shine. Like.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Did you watch the 3D version when it came out? There was a 3D episode 1.
Oh, I remember they did that in 3D.
I saw it. I saw it with my buddy Brandon.
I snuck into the movie to see it, but it was like the last 20 minutes, and we didn't have 3D glasses, so it looked weird.
Yeah, so what's the point? Oh, my eyes are tweaking. But yeah, see, I don't have the problem with the 3D, so I'm with my buddy Brandon, who actually appreciates 3D. And I know there's a lot of people who don't. And sometimes it can give you a little bit of a headache. But, like, I really like 3D, and I saw it in 3D. I like the pod racers because the 3D effect really showed there. Same thing with the final fight with
Qui-Gon, Darth
Maul. Yeah, Qui-Gon, and yeah, I was trying to think of all their names there. But yeah, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and taking on Darth Maul. Because like when those shutters are coming through and like they can't, like Obi-Wan can't pass, but Qui-Gon's a little bit in front. Like those barriers, you could actually see the depth because of the 3D effect, and that was really cool. Because it made you feel kind of more like you were there. And when I was growing up, and the first thing I saw that I distinctly remember was that fight, because like I don't know, maybe because I was younger when I saw Qui-Gon going after him and Obi-Wan was just like trying to get through and he couldn't. Like I honestly felt something for Obi-Wan because I knew that like if I was in his shoes, I would want to bust through those barricades if I possibly could and just get to him. But yeah, I just really like the prequels, especially like episode 1 for that. The pod racers were cool though. I mean, some of it felt like they were just trying to get you to know all those other aliens so that they could sell them as toys though. But it
makes sense now that I think about it, but I can only remember Sebulba and Anakin, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember their names, but I bought the Pod Racer game as soon as it came out for N64.
Oh, yep, I played the heck out of that.
I love that game. So,
I remember having like the Lego Pod Racer sets too.
Did you have Lego ones? Oh, that'd be cool. Because I remember seeing one. I can't remember what it looked like. It probably was Lego though. Mm-hmm. So, thoughts 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Episode 1.
Thumbs up.
Episode 2.
Thumbs up for the most part.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
I can't really say I hate on any of them, but
I mean, well, that's good. Okay.
I just am not a fan of 2 and 3 as much as I am the other 4.
Okay. So
I think it would be better if
they
could have done so much more with Darth Maul. I feel like they just kind of killed him off, and I feel like 2 and 3 didn't really have like a villain. If you think about it, other than I suppose Vader at the end of 3, but like there was nobody else.
So
what was the guy with the lightsaber and it like bent?
That's Dooku.
Dooku. There you go.
And for our listeners, I also want to say our condolences to the family of the man who played Count Dooku, which was Christopher Lee, who died at the age of 93. Rest in peace. But he did a fantastic job. And that goes back to our point, though, which is like these villains, because I don't want to say that it was necessarily done for toys, but I almost feel like Grievous was, because that's a character, you give him 4 lightsabers, and it just looks really cool.
Yeah, he was a little over the top, I felt.
Yeah. I liked him conceptually, but I felt like they could have made him a little darker, more brooding, and I felt like some of him was a lot like the droids, especially in episode, I think by episode 2, because in episode 1 those skinny droids were kind of stoic, but I think after the criticism of Jar Jar, they're like, we can make a droid goofy. We already did that with C-3PO and R2, so that works. Kids can get behind a goofy droid, so that's why you're seeing like weird interactions where like the droids would bump into each other. It's like or whatever. and that kind of crap would happen, and then all of a sudden Jar Jar found himself like up on the council, and he's not falling all over himself and being as goofy.
Yeah, I think that's because I feel like they had intentions to do more with him, but then they got so much flack for the character that they just kind of wrote him off. But
like, oh, by the way, if you get a chance, go online, and same thing goes for our fans too. Check this out. There is actually The Force Awakens, the upcoming movie.
Jar Jar in it.
Yeah, there's a Jar Jar. You've seen it?
It's awesome.
It's so ridiculous, but so great. Like, especially the first half of it feels like it could have actually kind of been part of the movie, like the actual trailer. And then by the end, you can just kind of see that they're just trying to show clips of Jar Jar. But it's still really funny because there's definitely a hate group out there just dedicated to that character, which...
I mean, I was probably, 12 when Episode 1 came out, so I suppose that appealed to me. I don't know, I thought Naboo was awesome when they're in the underwater speeder things. And
see, that's the thing. Like, I thought that was the best thing... aside from, like, trying to display this downfall of who Anakin is, which technically could have been done better, but I appreciated that part, was the fact that they did such a really good job of world building. Like, I didn't know anything about Kamino. I didn't know about, like, some of, like, Naboo and, the Gungans city and all that stuff, and they're just so beautifully done. Like, that was the one thing. Now, granted, that comes down to CGI and all that, but like it when you world build like that, it paints a broader picture than, you know, like a black palette of space and just blast, 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 and a couple times on a sandy terrain where a guy or two is duking it out with their lightsabers. You know, it paints a bigger picture of what's actually going on. Whether that's necessary, I don't know, but it really, for me, I thought it was cool, and I loved the whole. What was the name of the Gungan city? Was it just Gungan City? I forget. What was it called?
I feel like it had a name, but
yeah. And yeah, I could have done without the king with his, you know,
Boss Nass.
Yeah, Boss Nass. That's the name. I forgot about him too. Yeah. But yeah, like, there was a lot of good things about the prequels that I think when people get caught up in the whole concept of, like, trade routes and kind of cheesy horned-in love story, that they tend to miss some of those
forget about that part of
little
episode
things.
2.
Yeah, really. Like, that was the thing that made me go, what is the point of 2? Because, I mean...
That's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't...
There wasn't really
anything. Like, there was no story. Like, in Episode 1, Anakin's this little innocent child, and he's going to be the Jedi. In Episode 2, all of a sudden, he's an angry teenager. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's got to be more there. And, like, I feel like his idea was, well, they already know he's Darth Vader, so we really don't need to explain much about him.
For our other segment in our podcast network of shows, we're definitely going to talk about more... in what we're going to call Mr. Fix-It's Garage, where we just go in and analyze a movie and how you would specifically break it down and change it for the better. Because I know that there's a lot of theories about, like, oh, if I could just do Star Wars like Episode 2 differently, the whole thing could change for the better. But we'll definitely do that another time. And as far as Episode 2 goes, though, just on quick points, I would say, like, the love thing was just really extended. It didn't need to be... It felt like it was telling you that they're in love without making you feel like they're in love, you know?
Right. I feel like it was unnecessary.
Yeah. Like,
the fact that when they met, like, Anakin was, 7, and Padme had to have been...
I heard, like, 13, 14.
There's no way.
Yeah. She was a little too old. Yeah, and there's a weird difference there. And yeah, I just feel like they could have come up with a better concoction of how that relationship could work out. But I did, however, like the fight on Kamino with Obi-Wan and with Jango Fett. That was pretty cool. So they have bits and pieces that make them really awesome. But yeah, 2 just in a lot of ways didn't make sense for continuity's sake. Like, they could have almost condensed 2 and 3 tighter and then made 1 and 2 a little bit tighter, and that way you could do you could even see Anakin grow up on screen. Like, you could have little kid version of him get angry, and then you could show like a more teenage-ish version of him, and then that way you're already adjusted to him because he exists within that first movie. And then if you're going to keep Anakin, whether it's Hayden Christensen or not, you've already accepted him as your guy for 2 and then 3. And for 3, I would make that, like, the ending of 3 should have been the ending of 2, and Maul should have stayed as the villain. For that, he should have killed him, and then, you know, there should have been this rise from Sidious, and then have them actually show the path of destruction that Vader actually went on. Because everyone's always told Vader's so evil, and like you see in what was the game, The Force Unleashed, you actually have a confrontation with Vader and a bunch of stormtroopers in a couple scattered scenes, but you actually see him come down, and he'll actually, you know, have a real lightsaber fight with, you know, where he's killing off people left and right. You see the damage that he actually can do, and that was the thing I felt like between the original and the prequels was never really done justice, because you're told he did this, but you don't actually get to see how monumental this devastation has been. And where the hell did Tarkin come from? You know, from episode 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
all the generals and stuff, they don't,
Yeah, because they don't really...
I almost wish episode 3 was more of, like, explaining his rise to power.
That's
instead
what
of,
I'm saying.
Like, how he brought in the Empire and everything,
So they could have gone into that, and who knows? I mean, they're talking about, like, do you know about the spin-off that they're doing for...
like the Rebel Alliance or Rogue One.
Rogue One. And I think it's got Gareth Edwards, who did Godzilla, as a director.
Oh, okay.
So, I trust his vision. I really like that Godzilla movie.
At first I was kind of against that. I'm like, why do we need spin-offs? Like, aren't the regular episodes enough? And then I went back and thought about, well, they did make 2 Ewok movies, so I guess...
Anything's better than the Ewok movies and the Christmas special. The original thing that they were saying was like, oh, there's going to be a Boba Fett film and there's going to be a Han Solo film. Would you have preferred that, or do you like the concept of Rogue One better?
I kind of feel like if they're going to do a standalone movie, it should be something separate from the main universe.
Okay. That makes sense. I can see that.
As much as I love Han Solo, I wouldn't want to see his own film. I feel like that would be too much.
Right.
Same thing with Boba Fett. I mean, I'd like to see more of him as well, but they could kind of... I feel like they're going to work that into episode 6 or 7 somewhere. Yeah. Or 7 or 8.
So with like the Han thing, I'd heard, and I don't know if this is true, when it was getting pushed around, that basically they were going to keep it so completely removed from everything that you had been heard, or you'd heard in the Star Wars films up until that point, which was like him just totally being a bounty hunter. I think the only 2 characters that would have been consistent with the franchise would have been the fact that he meets Chewbacca at some point and they establish a friendship, and then he has some trade stuff with Jabba, and that was about it.
If they did it as kind of like a before episode 4, like, you know.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be alright with it, but who would play it? You couldn't have Harrison Ford play him in like...
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt, yeah.
See, anything...
I'd be down with that.
Anything that... what's his name? Harrison Ford did in the past, I could totally see Chris Pratt doing. I don't know why, and maybe it's because I saw him in the vest in Jurassic World, and it reminded me a little bit of Han Solo, but man, I think he's just witty enough, but he can be gritty enough that I could see him being even Indiana Jones to a certain extent, too. Which
I've heard that they're talking about that.
Well, they're talking... Well, apparently they've greenlit another Indiana Jones movie. Yeah. Whether it has Harrison Ford or not, that remains to be seen. Hopefully now that it's not in the hands it was in for the Crystal Skull, that Disney's got a little bit more structure and control on it, we can kind of get past the whole crystals and aliens and all that stuff and go back to like just adventure and swashbucklingness, you know, and because that's why I gravitated to the Uncharted video games, was because that for me is everything I wanted in an Indiana Jones movie. Just, there's a map, here's a treasure, let's go, you know, kill Nazis or whatever the protagonist was in that, or the antagonist was in that. But yeah, you just go on an adventure, have a hell of a good time, and stuff like that happens. Yeah, that was just a little bit of a notification, and that made Ryan just jump out of his skin. I wish you guys had seen it. It was great. Weird. I got my volume turned a little too high behind me. But yeah, like, I think Chris Pratt would be a good prequel Han Solo, because I don't want to do this whole kitty thing. That's people's criticism of the TV show Gotham, where it's like, oh, you got like Kitty Joker, Kitty Catwoman, Kitty this, that, and the other thing. Even though I really like Gotham, I can understand where they're coming from, and if they were to have kiddied up like the prequels and been like, oh, and there's this random kid, get the hell out of here, you little Han Solo, or whatever, like, that would have felt so stupid, and I'm glad they didn't do that. I like that it's the prequels stand as Anakin's story for the most part, and then, you know, you got Luke's story for the original three, and that's really what it stays as. So I
almost feel like the prequels are more Obi-Wan's story.
You think it's Obi-Wan's story?
Because
he is a consistent in all those too. But I think really the narrative is like the rise and fall.
I mean, obviously that's what it's supposed to be.
Into darkness. Yeah, but Obi-Wan became such a crucial part of it that you could definitely make that argument that Obi-Wan it's a lot of Obi-Wan's story. Which is kind of nice too, because really Obi-Wan, for as beloved as he is, you know, spoiler, he dies in the original first movie.
Right.
So, yeah, it's nice to go back and really find out why he's as celebrated of a Jedi as he is.
So if anyone had a reason to turn to the dark side, it was Obi-Wan. Like,
you think?
How did Anakin have it so bad?
I think it's all emotional. That's really what it is. And, I mean, he grows up a slave. Mother dies.
I get that, but he was so... If you look at I mean, to me, he seemed like he was so happy as a kid. Like, he was... I don't know.
Yeah, and then he gets taken away from his mother. Like, you know what? The funny thing is, if he hadn't met the Jedis, like, pretty much Star Wars doesn't exist, like, as it is. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Sidious probably would have found another guy, but it probably wouldn't have been as monumental as Anakin and the way that he plays out in the story. You know, there'd be no Luke and Leia. They would never have met Han Solo. Who knows? Han Solo would just be some chubby dude sitting out there just trying to make deals and crap. But
right.
Yeah, like Anakin is, at least from the way the prequels add to the whole thing, like, you really can't have the movies without him. So if he had stayed with his mother and never gone with the Jedis, the whole world would be completely different. I think that's awesome when you think about it like that. Yeah, so we've talked, I feel, quite a bit about prequels and the original trilogy. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see? What wouldn't you like to see from the new trilogy that's planned?
I don't know.
Like, I mean...
I feel like I'm excited to see the characters again, but I feel like how much more of their story is there to tell? Like, obviously there's got to be a new villain.
Yeah.
Which, rumor has it, from things I've read, is it could be Luke. Which makes sense, because he has his children, and Han and Leia's children are like the new Jedis.
Yeah. Okay, so from what I've gathered, it sounds like our villain in this is a combination of the new Empire, which is called the First Order, and I think Adam Driver's character is the one that you see holding the three-sided lightsaber in the trailer. I don't know what they're going to actually call that.
That kind of scares me. That doesn't seem really cool to me. And I feel like that's going to be everybody's like, oh, the tri-lightsaber, it's so awesome. And then, to me, it's just kind of like a little much.
I mean, I heard a lot of criticisms, even when I was younger, about the dual lightsaber that Darth Maul has, because the feeling was that how could you wield something like that and not accidentally like cut off a limb? And there was a bunch of jokes like that. But yeah, like I think when I see that tri-saber, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if that's actual force that's coming, or lightsaber that's coming out the sides of it, or if that's just like exhaust that's just creating like this really cool effect, and it's just happened to be longer.
I'm hoping they explain into some of that, because I don't want to hate on it just yet, but
I know it's different, and I feel like that's a case of someone trying to sell a toy instead of giving you like just a genuinely good lightsaber, because I think part of it is toy, but at the same time it's people creatively saying, how can we make this lightsaber stand out from that lightsaber and the battle that's going to take place with it, because you can only see two guys clash those things up against each other before you're like, okay, saw that, what's next? Almost like what Jurassic World did, is like, we almost want to make it bigger and better because we're going to start to lose some of that fan base. And that's ironically what ruined the Jurassic World. But, you know, the thing is, it has to be done sensibly. And if you start doing 4 lightsabers, you can really start to alienate people, you know what I mean? So hopefully they make some sense of it, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they're keeping, for the most part, everything like super secretive. Because I'm not one. I hate watching like movie trailers and getting way hyped for a movie and then having to wait, you know, a year for it to come out. Yeah. I'd rather like, I know it exists. I don't need to go and read all this stuff about it or watch all these different trailers and see all these different pictures. Like, I want to be surprised at like everything.
Right. Yeah. So my thing is with it, like, I like balance. Like, if you're gonna tell me that there's another Nightmare on Elm Street movie coming out, tell me that there's Robert Englund in it to make me really happy. Nothing against Jackie Earl Haley or whatever, because he did all right, but you know, we want Robert. You want the character that brings you back to the series as a whole, like the one you grew up loving, which is partly why I can almost guarantee at least episode 7 is going to do fantastic. I can't guarantee that the ones that follow will be as successful, but I guarantee you 7 will be, just because they're bringing back the cast that everyone remembers.
Oh, they'll be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I really,
I'm not worried about that.
When I was growing up, I thought that, you know, the first 3 were going to be just amazing because they were going to talk about this person. Oh, it's going to have Obi-Wan in it. Oh, it's going to be the best. And, you know, criticisms unfortunately followed.
The new ones are going to do better than the prequel trilogy, just because this is the story that everyone wants to be told.
See, that was the thing. When I was growing up, I always wanted the prequel trilogy. I wanted to know, how did we really get to this point? Because we're dropped in on this war. So how did we get to this war? Like, I always liked the rise and then the fall, but I never really cared about the aftermath of Jedi, because it was like, now we're just in recovery mode. But I think they did a good job, because now this new order has risen up, and now it's like, what? There's someone just as evil as what we had before? Now I'm interested. So that caught me.
Like they said in episode 1, there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, exactly. So I was always wondering if they would find a way to tie more Sith in. Like, because
maybe
they don't talk enough about the Sith. Like, that always drove me nuts, because it's like, here's our heroes, and they're going to go on a ragtag adventure, and this is their journey through the galaxy. But they, like, where the hell did Sith lightning come from? Like, I want to explore some of the really, I don't want to say deep dark side, but, like, I want to understand, like, how are these Sith being recruited, so to speak? Like, they do this whole recruiting job of Jedi, but, like, you don't understand what the... what do I want to say? Like, the process is that goes into being a Sith. Like, I mean, are you just finding someone evil and like, I think he's got enough midichlorians in him,
right? Are they just
I'll take him.
Recruiting fallen Jedi? Or?
Yeah, or if that's the case too. Like, there's not enough that gets invested into that concept, and that I hope that they delve into that, because they're rising up in this one, essentially. Like, there is this whole breed of evil that came out of nowhere, and I think there was talk that what's the old guy's name? He was the I forget his name, but he was like the old lieutenant that gets shot in Minority Report by Tom Cruise's character, the old white-haired guy. Did you see Minority?
Never saw that movie.
Oh, you've got to see Minority Report. It's so good.
I did see it. It was like went around when it came out. That was a long time ago.
I forget the guy's name, but he's like a really established British actor, which is always nice to have. Apparently, they do really well in Star Wars movies. But he's this older guy, Max von Sydow. That's his name. You might have seen him in other stuff, but Max von Sydow, he is this really great actor, and they said that he could play what he does best, which is like this older kind of evil character, which could lead to the theory that it's like some Sith Lord that's been kind of like off in the distance, and he's building up his own version of the Empire, which creates this new order, which I would love, because they talk about like Darth Plagueis, who was like, I think he was supposed to be like the original Sith, right?
Oh, that's...
They talk about him in the prequels, I think, is what it is.
I think he's mentioned.
Yeah. Because he was the mentor to Sidious, if I recall. But I think he was supposed to be like the original Sith, like the original fallen one, if...
Maybe, but the Sith have been around for thousands of years.
Is that true?
I mean,
I can't remember. Well, who knows how long Sidious...
Like, the Knights of the Old Republic...
Plagueis lasted.
Knights of the Old Republic game is like, what is it, like 500 years or something before...
I never saw it, or I never played that game.
That's probably one of my favorite games of all time, the original Knights of the Old Republic.
Then you'll probably like this, and for our fans who didn't get to listen to E3 this week, there is a new Knights of the Old Republic game called Star Wars The Old Republic.
It's not a game, it's an expansion to the PC
Oh,
MMO.
Is it? Oh, you know this. Okay. Yeah.
And the PC MMO is nothing like the original Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, it's not at all? Oh, okay. So I never got to play that game. I saw it a little bit.
The story of Knights of the Old Republic is probably better than any of the movies in
really?
my opinion, I think.
So who is the protagonist and antagonist of those?
It's what's his name? Darth Malak and Darth Revan.
I've heard the name Revan. Okay.
You're the protagonist, whatever you name your character, whatever.
Oh, okay. And you're supposed to take... So it's two Sith Lords, or is it a Sith Lord is his apprentice?
It's a Sith Lord and his apprentice, but the one is the apprentice, or is it the Lord? One of the two is missing. And it starts out where you're trying to rescue this other Jedi that was kidnapped by them.
Okay.
And then like the whole story comes out where like you're really a Jedi, but then you start like having all these weird flashbacks and all these memories and that's
kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, I always like the Force Unleashed games, and I'm really excited about the new Star Wars Battlegrounds game. Battlefront. Oh, there's Battlegrounds, Battlefield.
The gameplay of that looks so amazing, but I just don't trust EA to do anything.
See, that's a criticism I hear, but like, it's not in. Well, I mean, I like some EA Sports games. I think they screwed up the basketball franchise that they had, but that's me. I don't have a lot to go on with EA. Do they do the Plants vs. Zombie games?
Oh, they might.
Because I like Plants vs. Zombies. So there's some stuff that they do
with
right.
their game, it's always like you buy the base game, and then in order to get everything else, you have to buy all these other things.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Well, like with Battlefront, it's going to be like, oh, you get the game and you get like 6 levels, but if you want to play as the Jedis, you got to buy this expansion pack, or if you want space battles, you got to buy this expansion.
They
pack.
know how to draw people in for money, and I'll bet you 99%. Of the way that they're going to do that. I mean, it's just inevitable. I mean, like, even I love Mortal Kombat X. I play it religiously, and I paid for like a season pass. It was like $30, and then on top of that, they're adding costumes. Like, I just bought a Brazilian pack that gives Liu Kang a Brazilian outfit. Like, what does Liu Kang need a Brazilian outfit for? But I bought it. Sometimes they can just suck you in, and they know it. It's a douche move, but,
Yeah, that's the day and age that we're living in now.
Yeah, I mean, that's their way of justifying the fact that, hey, games, we could be selling them to you for $100 fully loaded. Now you get to pick and choose what you really want in that game. And if you really want it, pay that price.
See, that's why, for me, the best game out there right now is Marvel Heroes on the PC.
Yeah, I agree to that. Yeah, I like the Batman one,
but it's the only game where everything in the game is free. You can unlock every single thing in the game without having to pay a cent.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, because I paid.
I've probably paid like $200 on Marvel Heroes just because it's so awesome, and I want to support the developers.
$200?
Maybe not.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't even know there was $200 worth of material.
Oh yeah, every time there's a new character that comes out, I've been buying them now. But yeah,
wait, have there been? Because all I know is there's like an Asgard pack, and then there's like a pack that had who was the other ones? I think it was like Marvel bonus characters, like Spider-Man with a bag on his head or something like that.
Yeah, there's 48 playable characters now. This past week they just released Doctor Doom as the 48th playable character, and he's super fun to play.
Doctor Doom is a character?
Yeah, you get to summon all his little Doombots and his mecha things, and you can have the Doombots pick you up, and you ride around on a chariot and just shoot rockets all over the place.
That's awesome.
So awesome. Yeah.
Because I originally got it because it was super cheap on Steam, and when I bought it, I got it really cheap. I think because of like Black Friday for as a PS4 game. So I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna play it on console because I'm so much more confident on console because that's the way I was raised.
You're thinking of something else because it's not on consoles.
Marvel Superheroes?
Marvel Heroes. No,
I'm thinking Lego Marvel. Oh, you're talking about that one that's like Diablo?
Yes.
Oh, I really want to play that. Yes. My computer just can't handle that kind of gaming. I thought you were talking about Lego Marvel. I'm like, they're coming out with all these...
Lego Marvel's fun too, but no, Marvel Heroes, yes.
Okay.
Diablo 2 is my favorite video game of all time, and then this is by the same guy that made Diablo 2. Yeah. So it's basically Diablo 2 in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, because I played like the demo when it was in beta or whatever, and that game was really fun to do, but my computer is just slow. So I couldn't handle it. Same reason I can't play Infinite Crisis from DC's side of things, which is a really good game.
I downloaded that, but I haven't played it yet.
Oh, it's so much fun. You can be like Gaslight versions of characters and future versions. Like there's a version of Green Lantern that has no right arm, and it's just one big construct as an arm, and then the construct becomes like a big, a weapon of whatever, and they call that one like the Atomic Green Lantern. And then there's like a Gaslight Batman, and Batman has like all these sonar and sonic powers, and he'll hit you with like a sonic blast, and all of a sudden like a huge thing of bats will flood on the character. It's really fun, but that plays more like
League of Legends, kind of
like League of Legends. Exactly, that's the format for that. So, but yeah, with the back on Star Wars, because we tend to get sidetracked. The future movies, though, like how if you could guess or give your personal thoughts on what you would like for that first movie to be, what would you like them to tell? Like what would the story be if you could tell it, knowing what you know?
Man, I don't know, because
we know that there's the First Order. We know that there's this creepy guy. We have a feeling that Luke's going to be somewhere in there in the original cast.
I want to find out about, their Luke and whoever his love interest is. I'm not sure. Is it Mara Jade or something like that?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Because, they said they're throwing out the expanded universe stuff. There's none of that, apparently.
But I know he's supposed to have children, and Han and Leia are supposed to have children, and they're all supposed to become Jedis, and I kind of want to see all that. But when you see the trailer, it seems like something completely different. Like, maybe they're not going to... That's not the story now.
And see, that's why I disagree with you just a little bit with the whole telling of... Or keeping things secret, because I want to know kind of how did this the First Order, how did they rise up? What is the objective with this movie, so to speak? And I don't feel like that's totally explained. I almost feel like I know more about the Rogue One movie than I know about this one, because Rogue One is like the plans to steal the Death Star, so that already gives me an idea because I have some base knowledge to go off of. With this, it's like new character, returning characters, creepy character, a new cast of evil, but no objective. I mean, other than let's take down the bad guys, I really don't have much to go off of. I don't know how the new protagonist, I forget his name, but the kid from Attack the Block, who's
he's got the stormtrooper suit on or whatever.
Does he fall away? Does he find himself marooned? And does someone kind of say, "Hey, you've been brainwashed, fall away from the dark side, so to speak, and come and join us, and we're gonna take the bad guys down"? And is that how he comes into what he does? Where does this BB-8 droid, that little ball thing
that's rolling around?
I think it's actually really cool, because did you see the Star Wars Celebration where they unveiled the newest trailer?
I've seen pictures, and I've read a couple things, but not anything major.
The video that I actually watched the stream of it during one of my breaks, and it was, I think they got Luke, Leia, Chewie, and I want to say C-3PO and R2-D2, and at the very end they were like, "Oh, and we got a new buddy who'd like to join the cast and say hi to you guys." And then out came this life-size, like, real version of this BB-8 thing. I don't know how it moves. I'm assuming something with magnets, but that thing beeped and whistled, and it rolled across the stage, and that stole the show, in my opinion, because it was just... It brought up almost more questions than it answered. Yeah. Like, because I thought it was just like the CGI effect, but it's very practical and very real.
That's what excites me the most about this, because J.J. Abrams said he wants to do as much real effects as he can. He said as much, puppetry and building sets and get away from that CG, and that's what I want. Like,
and the older I get, the more I'm appreciating how cool that stuff is. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that too. I'm curious to see, like, when you see the trailer, you see like a downed or what are they? The Star Cruisers or whatever. Destroyer? Star Destroyer. Thank you. That's off in the distance, but I want to see like a physical ship that isn't just like that whole movie effect where they just do like the ramp that comes down and you see just kind of like an outline of a ship. I want to see a real physical ship, like whether it's the internal workings where they're going down corridors and stuff like that, or like a physical outline ship, because I think the only one in the prequel trilogy was that, like, that silver thing from the or was it the ship that Maul came down? I think it was the one that Maul came down on. It was like the only physical prop. Like everything else was pretty much CGI. So it will be nice to have some of the like physical constructs in that movie, stuff that you can literally look in it and feel like it's there.
They built the Millennium Falcon again. Like, that's real. That's there.
Because I think actually the Millennium Falcon, I forget which movie it was in the prequels, but it was in the prequels. I can't remember. Yeah, someone was telling me that it's in the prequels, and I think I remember seeing it too. But I think it's like glimpsed, like it's like off in the distance. Yeah, and then it's all in CGI because they didn't actually build it. Yeah, because again, CGI is way more cost effective. But I think that's going to be really impressive to see, like a physical ship or a physical droid, for that matter. That's that's animatronic and it's very lifelike and real-ish.
Right.
I mean, if it can make it across the stage, it's got to have some realness to it, right? But yeah, I'm curious to see if ragged, like, sand, dwelling girl that's in there. I think her name was like Kylo Ren. Is that her name?
Maybe.
The girl that's in the trailer. I think it's like Kylo Ren or something like that. If she turns out to be like Luke's kid, or if she's going to end up being Han and Leia's kid. Judging by her like characteristics from what they showed, it seems like she'd be Han and Leia's kid, because she's very ballsy, like doesn't really care about being high maintenance, and you can tell by the end of like Return of the Jedi that Leia loses pretty much all that hoity-toityness, because that's not in her character. So I'm curious to see if how these characters come out. Like I want a little bit more told to us, but I think we've got until December when it comes out.
Yeah, is it like right before Christmas or Christmas Day or somewhere around there?
Yeah, so I mean it's getting closer, but I mean we still got a ways to go. And as the last bit of bonus before we go here, I thought that Ryan would like to know, as well as our listeners, that apparently Marvel is not going to be at Comic-Con International in San Diego.
Really?
Which I was looking forward to going and seeing. It's nearly impossible to get a pass at this point, but the rumor going around now is that they took a back seat to Star Wars, because with everything that Marvel's got lined up, they feel like they've explained it enough for the Civil War movie when they had that earlier
That's true.
presentation.
They don't have much else this year other than Ant-Man. So.
Yeah, so they talk about Ant-Man. They maybe discuss a little bit of their upcoming stuff, and they're going to do that most likely at the D23 Summit, which is like Disney's own Comic-Con, basically. Right? Yeah, it's their convention. So apparently they took a backseat just so that they can focus on Star Wars, which sounds like a good idea, I guess, because the original rumor was that they just backed away completely because they knew that Batman and Superman was coming out. There's a lot of press for Suicide Squad, so the feeling was that they couldn't hold a candle to them, which, as much of a DC guy as I am, and I really am, I really think that Marvel is smarter than that. They know that they hold the high hand until Batman and Superman actually beats one of their movies. They hold the high hand, and they will for probably at least 2 years. I mean, they could hold it forever. I mean, because they got their foot in their door, and it looks like they're poised to keep it there.
Yeah, all the stuff DC's doing, I just don't see it coming close.
No, I mean, it's one of those things. I think DC really needs to focus on just making their world make sense to people, and if they can go there and they hit one big movie out of the park, even if it is Suicide Squad, which could, I think, end up surprising a lot of people.
That is going to be better than Batman and Superman.
It could very well be. Man, and we could spend a whole nother episode on just talking about Batman and Superman. And for any of you who missed our episode 2 talking about Suicide Squad, go and give that a listen, because it's a little bit more lengthy, but it's definitely a lot of fun where we go into theories about what's going to happen with that movie. But as far as Suicide Squad goes, I think there's so many layers to it and so many cool elements that could end up blowing people away more so than Batman and Superman, kind of like what you were saying.
I just think they're trying to do too much for Batman and Superman. Like, they see of how good the Avengers is doing, and they're just like, oh, we got to get all these characters out right now.
Yeah, and I hear that criticism too, but I think really what's happening is people know that stuff is coming, and they're assuming that such and such is going to happen. When Sean and I talked over Suicide Squad, we went into a little Batman Superman, and he had this theory, and it's not a bad one, that Aquaman was going to be the antagonist, and that's how he was going to get worked in the movie. Because much like if you ever saw the animated movie Justice League War, or I'm sorry, no, The Throne of Atlantis. I apologize. The Throne of Atlantis. It's basically where, you know, like, everyone rises up from the sea, and, you know, there's this, like, land versus sea kind of battle where Justice League takes on them, and Aquaman's kind of at the helm of it all. So there's a theory from him that because in the description for the movie, there's, as a new threat arises, and he's like, where does stuff arise from? From the sea. And I'm like, why not? I honestly think Batman and Superman is going to be Batman getting squaring off against Superman, because the world is going to have varied opinions on these two characters. They're going to have this guy who's very secretive and dark, and he's going to look like he's a protector that's just misunderstood, and that's going to work for Batman's favor. So much so that they're going to send him up against this alien that no one knows about, that some will deem as a protector, and others are going to deem as like this god that pretty much destroyed an entire city. And Luthor is going to stand out in front of all of it like he's, you know, almost like he's Sidious, where he's going to be like, I am the golden boy here, like, I'm going to keep everything together. Meanwhile, he's going to send Batman in, I'm sure with some sort of means, to go up against Superman and challenge him. They're going to square off. They're going to realize that, what are we fighting for? We're both here for the right reasons. And then they're going to turn their attention on Luthor, and Luthor's probably going to have some sort of backup plan. And I think that backup plan could be any number of things. I've heard rumors of Metallo, because
cool.
Yeah, because one of the guys that I really like watching, if you've ever seen Argo, or if you've ever watched Halt and Catch Fire, which is fantastic on AMC, there's a guy named Scoot McNairy. Not the greatest name, but he's a really solid actor, and he came over with Ben Affleck off of the Argo film because Affleck really likes McNairy, and you see him at like the steps of a court, and he's missing his legs. So the feeling, well, they're green screened over. Right. So the feeling is that they could be robotic. He could also be like a victim of the Metropolis disaster that happened in Man of Steel. But the feeling is he could end up being recruited by Lex Luthor to go up and challenge Batman and Superman, which would make sense because he's street level powered. He has the strength of Superman and could depower him with the kryptonite and everything.
Right.
And yeah, so that would make for a nice little villain there, and you could still keep Luthor kind of at the forefront while not saying it's another Superman takes on Luthor film. And where does Wonder Woman fit? That's the question, though, because Wonder Woman is got to be in it. But I don't think that Flash, I don't think that Aquaman are going to be in it. I think the only other
Didn't
character...
they already say that Aquaman is going to be in it? Isn't he under the cast list?
I think he was listed for Justice League, and that's why they're saying Unite the Seven. But I guarantee you, by the end of Batman vs. Superman, the Seven are not going to be fully united. I think it's just a slow marketing campaign to drive up interest in the concept of these guys being together. A recent rumor as of this week was that Batman is going to go to an Argus screen. Are you familiar with Argus? Argus is basically like the secret agency that's run by Amanda Waller, who like watches over everyone. Yeah, so like Suicide Squad. So Batman's going to sneak in, and when he goes to confront Amanda Waller briefly, he's going to see on a bunch of these monitors all these people with powers that apparently Amanda Waller's been having her eye on for all this time. So he's going to see Aquaman, and then he's going to see Flash. I don't know if he's going to see Green Lantern. That wasn't discussed. But the only other one I can absolutely confirm will be in the film, because he is in the cast, is Victor Stone, because he's going to ultimately be Cyborg. And they filmed a Metropolis Gotham football game, and he's going to be in it, because I think he's the star quarterback for Metropolis, which is how he slowly becomes the Cyborg character that we know, because he starts off as a high school football quarterback, and then his father basically turns him into the Cyborg that we know and love. So that, I think we're just going to see human versions of any of the other Justice League characters. The most you're getting out of this movie, assuming DC does it right, and I'm finger crossed that they are, is that you're going to see Batman and Superman go at it. You're going to see Lex Luthor. You're going to see some sort of sub-villain that he's created for them to go against. I mean, who knows? It could end up being Luthor scooping up remains of the Kryptonian wreckage and making a power suit out of it, and him going...
As much as I love that,
I'm cool with that.
I don't really want to see that in a movie. I don't know.
I'd be okay with seeing it. I don't want to see superpowered Jesse Eisenberg. I like Jesse Eisenberg, but I don't want to see him be... I want to see Jesse Eisenberg be cunning Lex Luthor, like he was in Now You See Me. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, it's so good. The whole point is that these four magicians are basically one step ahead of them, so the cops are always on them because they know that they're stealing money and stuff like that. And he does this whole thing with like handcuffs where he's like he flips right out of the handcuffs and he puts it on the other guy. And he's like, just when you think that it's almost like what I think Roddy Piper said, where it was like, just when you think you know all the rules, I change the questions. Exactly. So it's kind of like that, where he's always just one step ahead of them, and that would make for a great Luthor that you haven't seen yet on film. Yeah. I just don't want to see superpowered Jesse Eisenberg.
I just wish they could get Michael Rosenbaum to play Luthor forever.
As much as I love DC stuff, I have never truly committed to Smallville.
Oh, it's awesome.
Is it really? Because I've heard very, very mixed reactions. The only episode that I did see all the way through, just because I love Golden Age superheroes, is one that's called, I think, the Society. I think that's what it's called, which is basically like, if you're familiar with the JLA, or I'm sorry, not JSA, the Justice Society of America, like Hawkman and Sandman and I think Hourman and Hawkman and all those guys were there, but it shows how they're slowly getting killed by like this random assailant. And the last person that's remaining standing is Hawkman, who is like my second favorite DC hero, for personal reasons. But he ends up working with Superman to figure out who this killer is. And I kind of forget who the killer is now. But yeah, they work together, I think, with maybe Stargirl. Because like she's a really young recruit.
That's toward the very end of the...
Yeah, it's like towards the end. At that point, they were like, we'll throw in Doomsday, we'll throw in everybody, because we've lasted this long. We can't go down without a fight.
No, I really liked their version of the Justice League on Smallville. Like, when they first announced the Arrow, I was hoping it was going to be the guy...
You thought it was going to be Justin Hartley?
Yeah, I liked him as Arrow.
I think that's a cool take on it, but like, it was a little too boy bandish. Like, he had a little too much of good looks to him. Like, I always picture, and I hope that that's what they're going to do for Arrow season 4, is give him the goatee and or whatever they call it, the Van Dyke or whatever, that beard, and just give him like that liberal crusader kind of persona that you'd see in like Justice League Unlimited. Like that would be the character of Green Arrow that I would love to see. And I still do love Arrow, but yeah, that would be cool.
I still gotta start watching that. It's in my Netflix queue. I haven't.
You haven't seen Arrow yet?
No, I watched The Flash.
Oh my gosh! Man. Start with Arrow. Get to season.
I really want to see Flash because they did the Gorilla Grodd thing, and I just think that's cool.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though: you almost have to watch Arrow to get to Flash because his origin gets tied in with what he does on Arrow.
Yeah. Because
he comes in and then he goes back. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but you understand that relationship better. Plus, Arrow's just really good. Season 3, some love it, some hate it, but the problem is that Season 2 was so good. That was like one of my favorite seasons of television ever, that a lot of people were giving it this high point, and it's hard to match that. So.
It's on my list of shows to watch. I just started watching Doctor Who again from the beginning. So.
But yeah. High hopes for episode 7?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm already shopping around for a Darth Vader costume.
That would be awesome. I want to see what the new antagonist looks like and hopefully get a costume of him, assuming it's not looking like General Grievous. Yeah. I mean, I don't need that cheesy mask. I would like something that seems realistic. Like, I even saw, I think it was in the upcoming game, where it was like, or maybe it was a trailer for something else that was Star Wars, but it was like two brothers, and then the one takes on this mask, and it's got like half of his eye showing, or half of his face showing, where it's like just the eye, and then the rest of it is like this beaten up breather mask, and that looked really cool. Like, I was like, I could kind of see that. The only thing I didn't like was that the brothers looked almost like carbon copies of the Starkiller, or whatever his name was, from Force Unleashed. Where they got the shaved heads. And I'm like...
I was always mad that you couldn't, like, customize the look of him.
Can't you in Force Unleashed?
You can get, like, different costumes, but...
Oh, yeah, maybe not, like, head stuff, yeah. Nah, it kind of sucks, because, like, you would think that in all the variations in the galaxy, like, people would do more than just shave their head. Unless that's, like, a Jedi thing, but it's not really well explained. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll hit you with another one of these in the future. Have a good day. Bye.